Good morning, everyone. So we meet today here in this conference, welcome, in order to discuss the issue of infrasound and wind turbines. I would like to start by saying this is not actually a meeting that is directed against wind turbines as a principle. That is not the object of this meeting. You can be in favor, you can be against. What we are going to discuss today is a health issue. And I'm very happy for the interest that you show in this because, of course, health is of concern to everybody and it's, of course, also an important political subject. So the question today is, can industrial wind turbines harm our health through the infrasound that they produce? That is the topic of today. And how can we address this scientifically? And I'm very happy that we have specialists today with us to discuss this. I'm going to introduce them in a few seconds, but I wanted to say that actually this is quite a new subject as wind turbines are concerned. Sometimes we discuss health issues in the context of such industrial wind turbines, especially the stroboscopic effect that we have from time to time that can also cause epilepsy with some people or stress. We have also discussions about underground foundations and their impact on the soils and water reserves and so on. And we also discuss from time to time sound. And sound, actually, there are, and I speak here under the control of our specialists who are going to make their presentations very soon. We have aerodynamic noise, which can be very loud. If you are close to an industrial wind turbine, it can be something comparable to a road traffic, so it is quite important. And we have the issue of infrasound. I have found, and this was quite a coincidence, years ago actually, an article on infrasound and its effects on human beings. And that was in an article in 2003. I found it lately in my home. And that concerned haunted castles in the United Kingdom. And there were some studies that have been made, about these haunted castles by people from British universities. And they found in those days, in 2003, that people might feel uneasy, that they could get chills and fear. And so they have seen, and that was the University of Hertfordshire that made these examinations, that there could be a link between these consequences on health and psychological well-being and infrasound. But in those days, we were not yet talking about these wind turbines, and we did not have the same scientific knowledge that we have now, because when later Professor Madsen is going to explain his models and his research, you'll see that we have now reached a stadium of scientific expertise in this matter, which gives to the whole debate a new dimension and a new importance. So we have this infrasound debate. What is infrasound? I'm sure that you are all absolutely familiar with the matter. Basically, it sounds below 20 hertz, and we can perceive such sounds as humans, but normally we cannot hear it. So this is an important, and therefore we talk about infrasound. It's below the sound that we normally hear. But of course it can, as we mentioned already before, have an effect on our health. So we have here with us today a specialist that are going to explain the situation as they see it. And it's politically important to discuss the issue because when we have these wind parks that are going to be installed in an area, we usually have also some concerns in the population, and it's politically important to deal responsibly with the arguments that are presented. Are we taking these seriously? How do we react? Is there an impact on public health or not? And so we are going to go into this today with a number of specialists whom I have the pleasure to introduce. And first of all, Professor Ken Madsen from Sweden is here from the University of Uppsala, full professor for numerical analysis. So it sounds already very complicated, and it is very complicated. Professor Madsen is one of the really worldwide renowned specialists in this. I have seen also the kind of network and context that he has all over the world with very distinguished physicists and mathematicians. So this is something that is really bringing totally new dimension into the discussion. We have also the medical perspective, and here we have a lady from Germany, Dr. Ursula Belutsteak, welcome also, and she's a specialist on things that I do not understand. I understand a little bit of physics, but nothing of medicine. So, but I know that she is very much on microvascular phenomena, how they are affecting our health. Also, she's very much doing research about something that we ignored until a few years ago, the piezo channels. And we had, I think, in 2021 a Nobel Prize for this. So that is also a newly discovered dimension in the health debate. And Dr. Belutsteak is going to explain how these can affect our health and what are also, I must say, not only on humans, but also she's interested on animal behavior close to these sources of infrasound, and even plants may have to suffer some consequences. Then we do not have a one-sided debate today, because I'm very happy also to have a representative with us of the wind industry, and Guy Willems, a young Dutchman, who is going to explain the point of view of the industry, because I suppose and I hope that the industry is also taking these discussions very seriously, and will tell us how they see this. And then from Belgium we have a lawyer, very famous lawyer, I must say, who is dealing a lot with the practical applications of European law and the practical consequences on people. That is what we usually forget in European Parliament when we are making any regulatory decisions, and then we are being told by Maître Lebert after that what we have forgotten or what we should have done differently. So he has the point of view of the lawyer, and so we have physics, we have medicine, we have law, and we have the representative of the industry. So I hope that we are going to have a very interesting and nice debate. We have also from many countries representatives here who are dealing with those issues, often because they have concerns. I think we have people here from Ireland, from Slovakia, from France, and other countries who are going to contribute to our discussion. But I would like to start with somebody who is, for me, extremely important, because I consider her not only as a fantastic politician, but also as a good friend, Virginie Joron, who is a member of the European Parliament for the Patriots, a French lady, lately very active also in the electoral campaign, which is also always very tiring, I must say, and I'm happy that you could be here with us today, Virginie. Mrs. Joron has been also active in this field. She has tabled written question to the Commission, and also she's initiating a petition also on this issue, so her contribution will be very, very interesting also. I would seize the opportunity to welcome also the European Commission, which is represented today by, I think, DG Energy and also by DG Environment, and please correct me if I make any mistakes, because the Commission is, of course, as in many of these files, of paramount importance, and if you wish later to intervene in the debate, you are, of course, most welcome to do so. Then let me finally say that I would like to thank some people, because this would not have been possible without the initiation and the ideas by Madeleine, who is here with us today, because she made actually, Madeleine Staff Courant, she actually took the first initiative for this, and I would like also to thank my staff, my uppers, who have worked very, very long hours to make this possible, and especially Carola Eklund, where she here, because she fought with the bureaucracy to make this possible, and also, of course, James Holland and Alexandre Israel, who have made a tremendous job. So thank you all. I mean, that was now a long introduction, and now we come to the important part, the contributions to these discussions. I would like you, Virginie, to start and to explain a little bit what you have done and where we stand now, in your opinion. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Fernand. Hello, everybody, and just a few words to explain why I'm here and why we are to be focused on this topic. First of all, I would like also to congratulations to organize this, because it's very hard and very important to make this with everybody, as you mentioned, and you are professional issues, scientists, lawyer, petitioner, and commission. It's very interesting, and also from the European Parliament. And the story is I have received and supported a petition submitted in 2021 by Patrice D'Outremont on behalf of Citizen Association from Belgium, France, and Germany. This petition highlights a real regulatory gap, the absence of harmonized European standards to assess and limit noise, particularly infrasound, from onshore wind turbines. This gap is not theoretical, it's at concrete consequences for the daily lives and tens of thousands of residents living near these installations. 4 years after its submission in committee petty, I was 10 minutes ago in committee petition to explain what we want for the future, because we have some tools maybe to support this petition. In 2026, there are around 50,000 wind turbines in operation across the European Union, with installations that are increasingly large and powerful and therefore potentially more impactful. At the same time, reports of disturbances continue to grow: sleep disorders, fatigue, headache, and sensation of vibration. Faced with this reality, our legal framework is lagging behind Directive 2002. It's quite a long time ago. On environmental noise, now appears incomplete. It does not adequately take into account infrasound, not is adapted to these modern industrial sources. Moreover, national rules vary significantly between member states, leading to unequal protection for European citizens. On the 25 September 2025, the Committee of Petition examined this case and decided to keep this petition open after 2021. It is a good issue for them, because now we want to continue the work. This is an important political signal because it was supported for all the different political parties. And that is a good point, because now we also ask the Commission, European Commission, from the Commissioner Jessica Roswell, has acknowledged that the issue of infrasound deserves further assessment. This is a key point, as for a long time these effects were minimized or overlooked. At the same time, scientific research is progressing. The work carried out by Professor Madson shows that it is indeed possible to measure infrasound reliably. In other words, the argument that this phenomena cannot be properly quantified no longer holds. We now have the scientific tools that what is missing in the political will to act. It is precisely in this context that I table a motion for a resolution in this European Parliament based on this citizen petition on the available scientific evidence. This resolution was neither ideological nor partisan. It's transpartisan resolution, because we thought about in the first to the citizen, European citizen. It did not seek to challenge the energy transition, not to oppose different energy models that you mentioned for the introduction. Its objective was simple and pragmatic: to call on the European Commission to revise the environmental noise directive in order to explicitly include wind turbines and infrasound, and to ensure an equal level of protection for all European citizens. In other words, it was about responding to legitimate concerns raised by our citizens on the basis of facts, scientific evidence, and the precautionary principle. However, this initiative was blocked. The European People's Party opposite. It is a bad thing for them, preventing the emergence of a majority. In practical terms, this means that the resolution will not be adopted. That is the bad news, because I was, as I mentioned 10 minutes ago, I was there to defend this resolution. It was in a way stopped before it could even be properly debated. That is also another bad point. But it's regrettable, as you can see, because on a public health issue, we should be able to move beyond political division. We should be listen to the citizen, because petty committee, it is the citizen committee. We have to work with the citizen directly with this committee, and it's a bad signal for them. because we have now evidence and the position from the Commission. But we must also remain realistic. The European Parliament operates on the basis of political balances, and today the current balance does not allow this type of initiative to succeed. This does not mean that the issue should be abandoned. Not, quite the opposite. It means that we must adapt our strategy. That's the reason we have this conference today, and maybe we can, at the end, find some new tools to continue the work with some other channels, by closely following the petition, by submitting written and oral questions to the Commission, by mobilizing other members of Parliament, and by maintaining constant pressure to acquire concrete regulatory changes. We must also continue to collect data, document cases, and amplify the voices of those affected, because in the long run, it is this evidence that will shift positions. This petition from 2021 therefore remains a key lever. It is a democratic tool, a way to keep this issue on the European agenda, and a reminder that beyond policies and figures, there are citizen families and real life situations. A resolution will not pass today, as I said, but the debate has begun, and it will not stop here. I remain at your disposal to continue this work with you, with you also, Fernand, and to carry your voice on the European level. Thank you, and good conference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, when Virginie Joron says that she will keep the file, on the agenda, that means something, because maybe I'm sure most of you will remember her work during the COVID crisis, and if she says that the subject remains on the agenda, it will remain on the agenda, and very strongly so. But Virginie, it's of course a pity that we cannot pass the resolution today. Anyhow, you have drawn our attention to a number of very important facts. First of all, there are more and more such wind turbines that are being installed in the European Union, and also more and more powerful ones. So the effects, if there are, then any, I suppose there are, will be more and more powerful. So we also have heard from Virginie that it's very important that part of the problems are regulated not by the EU, but on the national level. For instance, the distance that you have between an industrial windmill and human settlements is normally regulated on national level. So that is what you refer to as unequal levels of protection also, and of course depends also a number of geographical and other issues, but it is so we have a European part of the discussion and national part of the discussion. And of course, one of the main issues is that we have to adapt the directive on environmental noise. I think that is really the purpose of so many of our discussions. And we have not seen until now, at least not to my knowledge, an initiative by the European Commission to work into that direction. I would suggest, except if you, Virginie, would like to take questions now, or you have to leave.
No, because now we have another committee. The name is CONT Committee, Control Budgetaire. It's your budget, our budget. That's the reason I have to go, because it's budget, money is important also a topic. But after that, maybe I will come back, and if you have some other question, it will be great for me to have an exchange with you.
So thank you very much for being with us. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. So then I would like to suggest that we would go now first to the scientific aspects of the discussion, so that we are all better informed on really what is the subject, really where is the scientific knowledge with which we have to deal. And there is no better person to discuss with Ken Madsen. He is not only, as I told you, professor for numerical physics, but he told me yesterday night that he has also a master's degree in astronomy, and I saw in his biography that he had appointments at Stanford University, at NASA, and so on. So really he is somebody that you cannot whose importance cannot be put into question. Ken, I would suggest that you make your presentation now, and then we continue with the medical aspects. Please, you have the floor.
All right. Do you hear me? Good. So my name is Ken Mattsson. I'm a professor in scientific computing at Uppsala University. So this is a picture I took 2 years ago, actually, when we did the measurement. So it's my own picture. So this is a short CV. I mean, I'm a professor. And I used to work at Stanford for a couple of years at NASA in air acoustics. I used to work 1 year at the nuclear power plant, but that I quit myself. I worked 5 years at the Swedish Defense Research Agency with underwater acoustics, detecting submarines. And my motivation for this started, I would say, 15, 16 years ago, while I was working at the Swedish Defense Research Agency with different models. And one of the main motivation is actually from traffic noise, because that's one of the biggest issue in the world. And it really affects a lot of people. And it's the low frequency sound indoors affects your sleep. I could notice it yesterday while I was trying to sleep at this hotel, that it can be very annoying with buses. And it's also very expensive. This is from Sweden, so it's 17 billion annually. And this doesn't include the house prices that also are affected. This is just from socioeconomic costs. All right. So if you want to simulate how sound propagates, that's my expertise, and the physics. There's some things you have to take into consideration. It's actually quite complicated to simulate this. You have to consider the atmosphere. The atmosphere is really key. If you don't have a proper or realistic atmosphere, you can't simulate outdoor. And then, of course, you can have buildings and mountains and stuff like that. You have to have everything in there. There's some physics. One important part here is diffraction, how sound waves bends around corners. It also diffracts in the atmosphere due to the temperature inversion and the wind. So sound waves are bent down. And in order to capture this, you need a full wave solver. And that's what I've been working on for 20 years or 25 years. This is something I did 10 or 15 years ago. We wanted to compare the simplified models that are used. And you have something called the parabolic equation method, which is quite sophisticated. It works on flat terrains in 2D. See, it's okay. This is for a benchmark problem. You don't have to understand. The black one here, if you can see it, it's the topography. So it's 2 kilometers. And then there's a source at the left. And these lines above are the sound levels. So we compare this to some parabolic equation methods, and we get similar results. In this case, it's a helicopter. It's not wind turbines. So it's 50 hertz, so it's low frequency sound. And then we compared it to ray tracing methods, even more simplified, and it's completely off. It's 40 decibel off. It can't handle topography, long distance. And the interesting, at least in Sweden, is in Sweden you have a model called Nord 2000. It's recently decided this will be used for everything. Traffic noise, it's used for wind turbine noise, And this is something I warned Sweden's the environmental research agency, 2012. I showed them this, that don't use this method because it can produce very wrong results. And they, of course, didn't want to listen. We published this. That didn't help. This is close to my home. This is from Uppsala. This is a road, and you see a car. And then you see a noise barrier and lots of houses. And this is how the noise from the car is propagated. Then we did a comparison. This is fairly new. It will be in the new paper that we will submit next month, actually. So the black boxes here are houses. Then you see the road. And there's 8 sources, trucks on that road. And then we compare with and without this noise barrier that is there. And this is what you get with Nord 2000. Notice that you get higher levels of sound when you put the noise barrier there. So this software is not working. So how can sound be higher if you put the noise barrier there? That's a key question. We don't know. This is with our solver. With and without noise barrier, yeah, the sound goes down. And then we decided to take 2 different days in January, January 11 and 13, completely different atmospheres. And you see the wind direction. So depending on the day, the noise levels are really, really different. It can vary 20 decibel in just 2 days, depending on the direction of the wind. So unless you have the atmosphere in there, you can't say anything. And here we used the source level from the industry. We just trust that. And I don't really trust these levels, but these are the levels that are used in the commercial software. So we use the same. The next step is to go out and measure this to see if it fits reality. But this is the effect of the atmosphere. This is the building I sit in, Uppsala University, the one in the middle. Every year they have a rock concert for the youngsters in front of that. So we wanted to simulate this to make nice animations to show the students, because then they become more interested in physics. So here's the rock concert. This is 50 hertz. I'm not talking about the infrasound yet. I will come to that. Here you see diffraction. Sound waves are bending around corners. So this is a 3D simulation. I only show the sound waves at 2 meters above ground. But this to make the point that you have to take the physics into consideration, especially if you have buildings. So low frequency sound bends around corners. That's the thing. So this is a big simulation. This is a comparison with Nord 2000, implemented in the commercial software. So observe the difference here. So you don't get diffraction from this model. So it's like 30 decibel wrong, because it doesn't handle diffraction. All right. This is just to illustrate what happens if you have a source outside. This is outside the building where I sit. This is actually the entire building. So you put the source, you probably don't see it. 100 hertz, 1 hertz, to see if the building shields or not. This is a transmission loss. With 100 hertz, yeah, some sound is penetrating because it's low frequency sound. But if you look at 1 hertz, the house is not there. It just goes straight through. There's no shielding at all. In fact, it can be higher levels indoor. All right, this is also, we put this subwoofer in one of the offices where one of my PhD students was sitting. I sit close to that. to illustrate 200 hertz and 50 hertz. So low frequency sound propagates through walls, bends around door openings. So it propagates very efficiently indoors if you compare to higher frequencies. So this just to illustrate the physics that, yeah, low frequency sound has some particular characteristics. It penetrates buildings quite efficiently, and infrasound in particular. This is from a very good 1-year validation measurement by Conny Larsson, one of my colleagues. He's one of the best in the world on atmospheric physics. He did a long time measurement on a wind turbine in 2 locations in Sweden. And he compared it to Nord 2000, and he saw that at 1 kilometer, it's roughly 5 to 7 dBA too low values if you use this Nord 2000. And he also saw that at 33% of the time, you get something called amplitude modulated sound. And I will show you what that means. It's extremely annoying audible sound. It's not infrasound. This is another long time measurement by Thomas Lage. He was a genius. He died, unfortunately. He was a genius. He did a long 10-day measurement. A person had complained about the noise, and of course he didn't do anything about it. He went there with good equipment, did a measurement for 10 days. What you see on the left is they wanted to show what the levels are without the wind turbines. It's roughly 30 dBA, the background noise. Here you see, here it's only from March 27 to 3 days. If you follow the green line, if you can see it, that's the dBA. The legal limit is 40, that's the red line. So it varies between, it's hard to say, between 50 and 60 decibel during that. It's always over the legal limit, except at one small time there. So it's almost close to 60 decibel at certain time. Here you see how the sound levels varies. It's due to the atmosphere. It's not constant. This is a very good measurement. This is another measurement, more recent, in January last year, in Sötterfällan. You have 10 Vestas, 3.6 megawatt turbines. This wind farm is 6 years old. We did measurements at A and B, where people live. So it's 600 meters and 900 meters from the closest wind turbine. We measured 60 dBA in the night. We went there during the day, it was 42 in the day. This is in the night. This is our simulation that fits the data. This is the industry simulation using Nord 2000 with Vestas sound power levels. That is 106.1 dBA. And at these locations A and B, you get roughly 38 dBA with this software. That's a conservative measure you can build. Okay, I don't agree. That day it was actually 119 dBA, the sound power levels. It was not 106. So it's a huge difference. 38 compared to 60 dBA. It's a huge difference. And this is not infrasound. So the legal limit is 40 dBA. This is at one of the locations, A. You see the meter up there, it's close to 60. Notice also the light. So they have horses living there also. This is at the other location, B, where people also live. So you have 60 dBA amplitude modulated sound, and you have this light. Imagine living there. And they have animals, they have horses. Of course, it's not like this every night, but they have nights like this. And this is with a good measurement. It's with calibrated equipment shielded against wind. Yeah. Okay, so I will end this audible noise. You have this audible noise, and this amplitude modulated noise is very annoying noise because it's unnatural. It's this pulsating type of annoying sound, and it's usually loud also. It can propagate 10 kilometers. You can hear it over 10 kilometers. This is not infrasound. We know that amplitude modulated sound is more annoying than non-amplitude modulated sound. We know that. We also know that the annoyance increases with the low frequency content going up. So low frequency sound is more annoying. We also know that if you take 40 dBA with lots of low frequency sound in it and compare it with 40 dBA with high frequency in it, it's much more annoying if you have more low frequency sound in it. Here are some publications, if you don't trust me. One is in Swedish here, actually. Yeah, so it's a huge problem. So pulsating sound is very annoying. So just talking about the sound level is wrong. You have to talk about the shape of the sound. And that's what's making wind turbine noise unique. This is infrasound. Now I'll talk about infrasound. This is what infrasound looks like. Each time the blade passes the tower, you get an implosion. It's actually aerodynamic. It's not really noise. It's an aerodynamic pulse that will propagate with the wind. So it's actually quite complicated. So each time you have this blade passage frequency with this newer turbines, it's probably between 0.2 and 0.7 hertz. It's below 1 hertz. And you get these spikes. This looks like explosions. If you look at explosions, they look like this. It's just that it's pulsating. You get an explosion each second. This is not what, if you go out and measure infrasound at the beach, yes, you have very high levels at the beach, at the waterfall, in the forest. But it's not this shape. It's more harmonic, stochastic, broadband, continuous. It's not pulsating. It's a huge difference. So if you only talk about the levels, you're missing 50% of the information. You have to look at the shape. This is not natural infrasound. We have that. Natural infrasound doesn't affect you. This is what affects you, the pulsation. This is a nice quote from Dieter Böhme. You can't hear infrasound from wind turbines. Well, some people actually can. But that does not mean that you can't perceive it. If you could hear it, it would be like dripping faucet that you can't sleep with, as opposed to the sound of the ocean, which makes you want to sleep with the windows open. That's a nice quote. The first one who actually wrote about this is Neil Kelly. I have talked to him many times. I have all his reports. Please read his studies. This is one of the best studies ever made, 1985. The industry will never talk about this report. He was sent out to measure infrasound because people complained, they got sick. And he measured it really accurately, and explained the behavior of this pulsation and everything. It's really inspirational work. Okay, I will skip this. you already mentioned that infrasound is waves below 20 hertz. If you talk about electromagnetic waves, you have radio waves, microwaves, and then you have X-rays. I like to mention that some of the authorities and industry say that, well, infrasound, you can't hear it. Therefore, it's harmless. You can't hear it. Okay. You can't see X-rays. Is it harmless? You can't taste arsenic. It still will kill you. So, yeah, you don't have to hear it to be affected. That's for sure. I will show you some citations. Okay, here's some sources of natural or human infrasound. You get lots from explosions, airplanes, wind turbines, diesel engines, fans and ventilations. You have it from the ventilations here. Then you have natural. You have volcanoes, northern lights actually, ocean waves, earthquakes. A lot of my research is about volcanoes. So we listen for infrasound to know when it's going to explode. That's part of my research actually. All right. And then you have some animals that communicate with infrasound. This is the group. And this is the equipment that we have been using. It's called Lidström. We have calibrated this twice at the CTBTO station in Norway. And the experts in measurements are Leif and Jose and Kurush. Leif has been working with infrasound measurements for like 35 years. And Jose has a PhD in infrasound measurements. And then you have Gustav, who's the brain in the group, my former PhD student, who actually wrote the software, most of it together with me. So this is the group. This is at Målarberget Wind Farm. This is the publication that we did it came out last year. So that captures everything we did for 2 years. This is from one of the measurements where we actually managed to capture when they turned the wind turbines off, because the electricity prices at 12 o'clock became negative. Then you turn them off. So we captured the entire shutdown. This is the noise on and off, before and after. It shows, this is the infrasound levels. It goes down by 20 to 30 decibel. So yes, the infrasound is caused by the wind turbines. But you also get infrasound from the forest. It's not zero. And this is the simulation where we did, this is the measurement point. So it's roughly 700 meters from the closest wind turbine. I also have a resident who lives there. At this day, it was 95. We actually went there 2 months later. It was 20 decibel higher at that time. It was a very windy day. So this was a good day. The sound power level is roughly 154 dB at 1 hertz. To explain why you shouldn't use dBA, this is A, C, and G filterings, a different type of filters. You see to the left, how much you remove from each frequency when you sum up. So the blue is dBA. So if we take that recording and sum all the infrasound between 1 and 20 hertz, we get 106 dB. It's 22 dBA. It's very low in dBA. If we turn the wind turbines off, it's 79 decibel in the forest. It's not zero. So if you use dBA, it's minus. So, yeah.
Perhaps explain dBA.
Yeah, the dBA, well, for example, at 1 hertz, if you measure 150 decibel at 1 hertz, you take minus 150. That's what this means. So it becomes zero. So when you do the summation, it's zero. So you remove 150 decibel from 1 hertz. And at 1000 hertz, you actually add. So this is based on how the ear works. It's not based on health. So don't use dBA. That's one of the main points. This is from another measurement in Lervik. You have 7 Siemens 6.6 megawatt turbines. They're quite big, actually. This is 650 meters from Kjell-Åke, who lives there. This day, it was 105 decibel at his house. This is the simulation based on that. The sound power level was quite high, 169. We went there in September. It was slightly lower. Then you also had all the 7 of them operational. When you do measurements, you have to know which one is on and off. So we have to ask the operator for that, and they collaborate. This is the simulation, and that day it was 97 at 1 hertz. So it was lower. This is a simulation of this. This is Lervik wind farm. So we like to generate this nice animation because it makes it easier to explain it to politicians and my students. It looks more advanced. Well, it is advanced. But yeah, so this area is quite big. So yeah, infrasound, it propagates far a lot. And you also get interference from them. Yeah. So this is what the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency say last year. There's no special models are needed to calculate the infrasound from wind power, as this has been found in several studies to have no impact on humans. Then they cite 4 papers, 2 internal reports, 2 actually peer-reviewed articles. One of them, 11, doesn't say much, actually, I must say. This Finnish study, they expose people, healthy people, 30, for 73 decibel at 1 hertz for 10 minutes. And they didn't get sick, so it's harmless. That's the conclusion. Okay, what do we actually know? I'm no expert, but this is the papers I found through experts. This is a study from 1985 in Sweden. They exposed people to infrasound and saw it affected their blood pressure at high levels, 95 decibel and above. Alex Salt showed that there's 2 systems in the ear, one that is sensitive to infrasound, and then the regular hearing that is not sensitive. That is really important. I talked to him a lot. Then there are these 2 recent studies that prove that the brain picks up infrasound below what you can hear. These are the proofs. Yes, it affects the brain. Hearing is not involved. 30% of the population are high sensitive people. Those are the people who will be affected by this. Not all the people will be affected, not immediately at least. Some people who has done measurements got sick, and they published this. This is by Robert Round. I talked to him. They got sick while they did this measurement. And the first good study is about Neil Kelly from 1985. So if you haven't read that paper, please do that. All right. So what do we need to do? Well, I'm suggesting to do a proper study. That's why I'm here. Do a proper study. So we know what is a safe distance. You need to have the levels that at least we record. And also, this sound is pulsating. So ideally, you have to expose the people to pulsating infrasound, not harmonic infrasound. You need to have lots of test subjects, more than 1,000 people. And you have to include people that are highly sensitive in that study, documented highly sensitive. You have to involve experts on the brain in this study. And you have to look at long time exposure. 10 minutes is not long time. I'm talking about months or years. But some people are affected only after a few hours. And one important thing is that the infrasound is pulsating, that is generated by wind turbines. And you also have vibrations in the ground. I haven't talked about that, but you also have seismic vibrations. And some of these recordings show that the infrasound levels are higher indoors. And this is something we will investigate in a future study. All right, so I get to the politics. So yeah, we had the wrong metric. Don't use dBA. You know that pulsating signals are more disturbing than steady noise. Infrasound or low frequency sound can travel many kilometers, especially at night when the atmosphere are really good for propagation. And you have to use good models that includes the physics that are necessary. And that is my expertise, of course. You have to measure also indoor, not only outdoor. You actually have to measure it. Don't model it. And current rules do not measure what matters. So that's my key point. And this is how I see my last slide. How should it be regulated? Well, you should use realistic models when you simulate this. You have to make, when you're checking if you're violating the regulations, you have to have independent measurements, not sent out by the industry. It has to be like a doping control. Don't even tell the industry that you're going to do these tests or measurements. And you have to use calibrated equipment. If you want to measure infrasound, you have to calibrate it at 1 Hertz. It's not enough to have calibrated equipment against 1,000 Hertz. It's not enough. You have to calibrate it at 1 Hertz also, if you want to measure at 1 Hertz. And you have to include low frequency sound and infrasound in the regulation. What the rules should be, I don't know. That's why you need to have this study. So I end with that. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Metzen. I think that we all enjoyed learning physics again, which is always very interesting and fascinating. And also, you opened already the debate for Dr. Bellutzek, because you mentioned several things that should be challenged, and we are challenging them here today because we asked the right questions. You mentioned, for instance, that the environmental administration in Sweden said, well, there is no impact on humans. And I think that we should ask, is that so? And you also mentioned very briefly that there is animal communication in this infrasound area. And this reminds me of the fact that we have some studies, such as yours, on the onshore wind turbines, but we have not much or almost nothing on the offshore installation. So there are so many biological and medical questions that we can ask. I'm sure that now Dr. Bellutzek is going to explain much more in detail the medical aspects of this. And I would just like to remind all of us about her qualifications, because she's in microcirculation, and these piezo channels that have been recently discovered is a field of her research. And generally, she's dealing with environmental medicine, including vibrations. Professor Madsen also mentioned these vibrations that we have in addition to the sound. So I'm sure that Dr. Belutsteg is now giving us much more information on the medical side. I don't know how we feel after that presentation, maybe a little dizzy or uncertain or whatever, but we are listening with great interest to you. Please, Doctor, you have the floor.
Dear members of parliament, dear representatives of press, I'm really happy to have the opportunity to show my and of a lot of meanwhile scientists' big concerns about the situation with really big and bigger becoming wind turbines, which are meanwhile known as the biggest infrasound producer of this special infrasound, pulsating, non-natural, continuously, possibly 24 hours, 7 days. When and why can external forces such as infrasound disrupt biological information pathways and harm public health? I will show you a critical significance of force transmission, because we know much more than before the year of 2000 about the importance of forces in the organisms. What you can see here is just to show you that different animals have specialized ranges of frequencies they take to perceive information from outside. What you can also see that some of them have ears and others have no ears. Some of the animals have a sort of tympanon. But then you can also see that the hearing with the ear cannot be the standard for all animals. For example, we talked about that whales are communicating with infrasound frequencies. And you also find the wind turbine in the, yes, Ken Madsen already told, between 0.2 to 7 or 12 hertz. The biggest problem I will show you later on, that this is exactly the range of many organs in our body, because all the organs vibrate also. Ken Madsen already told that natural sources are earthquakes, volcanoes. We have technical sources, we have like cars, airplanes. We have occupational sources like the aircraft industry. And we have the biggest problems actually in the coming from residential emitters. It can also be heat pumps, but IVTs have this long distance impact. Yeah, under 20 Hz, this is not audible for humans. And then I show you the next. This is to say what are the differences between natural sources, we heard a lot of that, and man-made technical sources. We have to remember that a long course of evolution has led to the animals like they are now, and our bodies as humans have become accustomed to the natural sources like ocean waves, like wind noise, and our own bodily pulsations, oscillations, like the blood pressure. But our bodies are not to be adapted to periodic impulsive infrasound. This clearly is leading to an increasing incompatibility with vital processes, as we know since a few years. And I will show you some examples. IVTs are a particular far-reaching environmental factor. Emissions can travel, like Ken told us already, long distances. We know from offshore turbines that they can travel 80 kilometers. And this is the bad news, they permeate all tissues of organisms. All means all insects, all mammals, each animal is impacted in the near. The biggest difference is the property, the special properties of the complex sound, as Ken also mentioned. And the difference is also because often people compare the infrasound from cars with the infrasound from IVTs. And then I have to say, if you drive a car a long time, you are impacted also, but not with impulsive, but with infrasound about 80 dB. But this is on the own responsibility. And this is the biggest difference for that. If you're living in the near of an IVT, you have no chance to escape. Now, what has completely changed the situation of our understanding? It's a little bit small, I know, but I will tell you. Very famous researcher told since long time, sound is force, is information, is energy, is vibration. That was Max Planck, Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, for example. And what we know, meanwhile, all organisms, if insects or mammals, of birds or whales, have a completely other perception level in their bodies outside of any ears. All of them, all multicellular organisms have this perception level. These perception, these are sensory organs. These are little channels which we know are placed in the vessels, but also in our tissues and in our organs. They are called piezo channels. This is coming from the electric side because it handles about a conversion of a force into electric information. I will explain this later on a picture. When the force is converted in an electric answer, this will lead to a biological or biochemical answer. This is a physiological process which takes place in all our tissues, in all our organs. And for recognition of these extraordinary level of perception from forces and sound and energy, Ardem Patapoutian was awarded the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 2021. So officials could know this perception level, this new. The piezo channels itself is very, very old. I read that they are assumed to be 1.5 till 2 billion of years. So you also can assume how important this perception level is. You see, all organisms have this level, also plants. Now I show you what led us to a completely new scientific understanding of the effects of forces within an organism and acting externally. The first is all tissues and organs in particular are equipped to varying degrees with sensory organs. These are also called mechanosensors, force sensors. The most important are the piezo channels, which translate force into an electric answer. Our body, our cells are in vibration continuously. This is also very important. We forgot it, or most of people forgot it. The single cells layer found in all vessels, I will show you this later in a picture, was recognized as much more important than we believed before 2000. The endothelial cells is the inner surface of all vessels, a single layer of cells that cannot only produce nitric oxide, but also is regulating vital regulations of humans and organisms. Then the third point, research is revealing more and more functions of these piezo channels in the different organs. I show you a picture after a Chinese study. It's from 21, where you can find these piezo channels. There are two groups like piezo 1, piezo 2, and we can only take two of them like A and B because everything else would blow up our time. But you can imagine how important the elucidation of the functions of the piezo channels in the organs is for our understanding of the working of these channels. So we take the vessels. What you can see here is a view on a microcirculation of a human. This is a still image. Normally it is a video where you can see the cells wandering in the vessels and you see the branches. And you can imagine that this is the support with oxygen and nutrition for all our cells. Each cell in our body has to be supported by oxygen and nutrition. And much important is also that the increase of the little vessels can grow up to the 30-fold so that we can compensate to the demand the support of nutrition and oxygen if we need. If we need it in the muscles, then the vessels in the muscles will open and support. So you will learn what do forces here acting. Forces in these vessels are acting on the endothelial cells. You see the right picture. This is a longitudinal section of a capillary. And you see in the inner surface, you see these little cells. These are the famous endothelial cells. And on their top, they have the mechanosensor piezo channel. If you look again on the left picture, you see a sort of double structure. Can you see around the more black vessel? It seems to be outside, but this is the endothelial cell level to look like this if you see it with this video microscopy. So we go further inside the situation. I hope you see what I wanted to explain. On the left side, this is an endothelial cell in a schematic view. And you see that I took an excerpt only of the membrane, which is towards the bloodstream. So on the right side, this is the surface of the membrane of an endothelial cell. This is a schematic graphic. And you see that on this blue layer, this is the surface, you see the piezo channels laying inside. And this is a wonderful construction because it has 3 wings. And when a force is coming along the bloodstream, then the membrane is moved, the piezo channel opens and let calcium to plus ions inside. This is the mechanotransduction from forces in electric information, the calcium ions going inside the endothelial cells and lead to an answer, to a biological answer. Why do we need this perception? We need it because animals and humans have to recognize proprioception, air pressure, gravity, vibration. This is essential. This is a magnification of this piezo channel. And now I show you what I meant with the vital tasks of endothelial cells. I explained that before 2000, we had only the situation that we thought this cell is able to produce nitrite oxide to open the vessel. No, this endothelial cell is able to do the blood pressure regulation, to keep the fluid homeostasis, to regulate the immune situation, to regulate growth and embryology, to regulate the most vital functions in our life. This is a very deep insight in our vital functions. Now, what happens if we take a situation with technical pulsed infrasound signals? This is the only slide which you couldn't find not in the papers till 2023, because nobody could imagine that the pulses are able to activate piezo channels. One reason, because piezo channels were not identified before. So you can say it's not the questions, is this possible that infrasound pulses activate? It's more the questions, why shouldn't they not activate the piezo channels and lead to an irregular information in the endothelial cell? Because on the other side, we have the results in the stressor studies with animals and isolated heart cells, which show that this effect happens. These are the experimental studies, and down you will find the different studies. What we know, if you overstimulate in animal experimental settings with similar sound pressure level like Ken Madsen now confirmed, you get study results with calcium overloaded cells, with massive oxidative stress, with reduced contractility, fibrosis, and also in the brain in rats, you will find after 14 days apoptotic cells after programmed cell death. To show you what is the big difference also. If you have controlled settings, there were studies with rats where they tried to handle colon carcinoma and infrasound as a treatment. This might be possible, but what we have with IVTs is an absolutely uncontrolled situation. We have an open air, we have an open water situation, and we cannot say what happens really with all organisms. Till now, till also Ken Madsen did his wonderful work, many people told us, no, this is unrealistically high values. But no, we know we have values from 90 and nearly 220 dB, yes, in the right dB assessment. What are the consequences in the vascular system? This was the situation I could recognize that the people are suffering from microcirculation disorder because it was my focus since 20 years. And I could recognize the symptoms as energy deficits. But the people are weak, they have not the power. If they want to use their power, they haven't. They have headaches, they have loss in concentration, they have often chest pressure, they have tinnitus, a typical sign for microcirculation disorder. What you have also, if you prove the studies, you have calcium 2+ overload, you have not the right nitrite oxide generation, and this leads after the science to very deleterious properties of the nitrite oxide, because then you get the opposite. You get not less of the oxidative stress, you get more and more. And there's another point. If you combine the infrasound with abrasion from PFAS, you know, these are the long-lasting substances, alkylates, you get a super additive effect of oxidative stress. What we get for a chronic time, first we have the functional disorder, later on we have the chronic diseases. Then the vascular system will get in an inflammation state. And the very bad thing, if you get a vessel in an inflammation state it's different from the personal capacity to compensate. But then you get a decreasing of endothelial functions. And you remember that one of the functions is embryology. So what we can see and assume also for humans is a reducing of fertility of all living organisms in the near. So this is a list what you can expect if you have this inflammation as a silent inflammation. You have disturbance in all functions we talked about: immune system, reduction fertility, balance of the homeostasis. So you will see that this is a quite big, bad situation. Now I come into the brain because this is the second organ I want to talk about. We know if you have the piezo research has already elucidated some functions in the brain, in the cardiovascular system, and it's known, meanwhile, that the neuronal development of a child is influenced by a possible overstimulation. If you have a child or unborn or a little child, the brain is not yet developed in the early phase of 1 year. So in overstimulation, it can change the structure of the brain. You will get other cell lines than the normal. And the second is, many processes in the brain, like the function and the communication, also depends on the stimulation of piezo channels. What I'm talking about is already research, peer-reviewed, a very important, relatively new research. And so we have a link to Alzheimer's disease also, because you get in the brain possibly neuroinflammation. And we can see that in our animal experimental studies. I just wanted to show you which stages of life are most sensitive. You can imagine that these are the initial stages of embryology, because in the first days or in the first 2 weeks, we have the everything or nothing law. If there is a vibration or a strong enough pulse, it can stop the gravidity. And also the brain development during the pregnancy, or also the organogenesis of the embryo on the fetus is very, very sensible. This, what I showed with the graphic on the right side, is what also Ken Madsen mentioned, that in enough rooms there can be an aggravation of infrasound, especially in the corners. So if you imagine there is a child or a baby lying, then you can imagine the fear, what happens with more and more higher sound pressure levels and deeper frequencies. And you know that protection lines normally forbid to have children and pregnant women near vibration and infrasound. So my conclusion, piezo channels react to compressive and tensile stress, such as infrasound. That is proven. Evaluating infrasound in dBA is misuse for several reasons. Also natural laws. The transmission of forces is the basis for all organisms to maintain their structure, their function and communication, and to convert information into biological answers. If external forces in chronic impact override the physiological pathways, the entire system becomes increasingly unbalanced. Initially functional and in principle reversible disorders become manifest diseases. After an individual period of compensation, every living organism must exhaust. That's, I wanted to mention to Ken Madsen's sayings that even if we don't recognize that we are getting ill, that doesn't mean that we have an increased blood pressure. So especially women and children are more sensitive, but we have to expect that after a certain time, every organism will exhaust and show continuous signs of illness. A 10-kilometer negative impact nowadays with our now existing turbines, not yet normally the 7 megawatt, means an immense biodiversity loss. And we must assume that also insects with their piezo channels they have are concerned not only from the wind turbine itself, but also from the infrasound. The reliable evidence of serious damage is so substantial that an immediate moratorium is necessary in order to scientifically reassess infrasound frequencies and all consequences for humans, animals, and nature. Overall, in Europe, planned 7 megawatt installations must not be installed without this re-evaluation. From my point of view, we have no time to wait till everywhere will be installed 7 megawatt turbines, because we have then a not yet predictable circle, much more bigger than 10 kilometers impact. And we will get thousands of people and especially sensible groups injured. And we have an increase in our biodiversity loss. What I wanted to say as last sentence, human dignity, the foundation of our lives and the respect of all living beings require that the biological integrity of all be protected. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Doctor. I think that I don't know whether you feel as I feel, but when I listen to such presentations, I feel a lot of respect for life in general. I always consider that it's a miracle that we are here and that we discover slowly and slowly through a lot of research how complex we are and how much we have to take care about our bodies and our health, and which responsibility actually we bear also as politicians when we make laws or whatever, that we take this into account and that we are always reflecting the last results of scientific research. Now we have heard about a lot of problems and potential risks that we have with these industrial wind turbines. Now, I think it would be very interesting to hear also the point of view of the industry.
Thank you once again for the invitation for today. Thank you for the interesting presentations we've already had. Let me start off with something that I think we can all agree on. Europeans deserve affordable health. We see a big crisis now again. We deserve strong rural economies, and we deserve rules that protect our health. Let me start off with that and then show you a bit on where we are when it comes to wind energy around Europe at the moment. Let me just put it all on the screen for you. So we already have around 304 gigawatts of wind energy installed around Europe. That corresponds to around 20% of all of Europe's electricity demand. When we look at the EU, that will be around 19%. Now, when we zoom in a bit to where this capacity is installed, we see that that Germany is the leader by far within Europe, 78 gigawatts, but we also see very big concentrations in Spain and France and the United Kingdom, but also in the Nordics. When we look at how much it's generating on a national level, we see that Denmark is the front runner in Europe. They already generate around half of their electricity by wind turbines, but also the British Isles, Iberia, Sweden, and Lithuania generate quite a lot of their electricity already with wind energy. Now, that has some other benefits already as well. I'll come back to this a bit later, but we have quite a lot of jobs in Europe at the moment, 440,000 that are related to the wind industry directly. We expect this to go up to 600,000 by 2030 when we reach our wind energy targets. Now, let me zoom into why we are here today, the issue related to sound and health. Let me actually get my notes here. So, I mean, we've heard a lot about infrasound already from the presentations. Infrasound is everywhere, and it is of course not untrue that wind turbines have infrasound. That's the reality of the situation. But the infrasound generated by wind is stronger than that generated by a wind turbine. There are also a lot of reputable health authorities that say that infrasound generated by wind turbines does not impact human health. I just wanted to name a couple of them. Health Canada, there's no association between wind turbine noise, including low frequency infrasound, and blood pressure, sleep quality, stress hormones, or migraines. Annoyance is the main effect and is context dependent. In Australia, the NHMRC, there is no consistent evidence that wind farms cause adverse health effects. The German Environment Agency, the Umweltbundesamt, infrasound from wind turbines is below the threshold of human perception, and current research shows no evidence of adverse health effects. Keep studying, but the measured levels are under threshold. The RIVM in the Netherlands from 2021. Annoyance rises with overall loudness. Low frequency components don't add special risk beyond audible noise. Participation and fair process reduce annoyance. And the last one that I have, Sleep Science 2024 review in sleep. With reasonable citing, modern turbines do not disrupt sleep, including low frequency and infrasound components. Now, that is the research that I would like to speak about, but I also want to show you a bit what the legislative overview is at the moment all around Europe, because we as Wind Europe are tracking this. First of all, putting it in a bigger context, how loud is a turbine? This is approximately how it is. This picture is from a couple of years ago, though of course turbines have become a bit bigger, but these values can still be considered to be true. It's a bit small on the screen there, but basically what it is saying is that at 400 meters, a wind turbine is as loud as a refrigerator. Now, I don't hear my refrigerator at home most of the times. I don't know about your refrigerators, but they are rather quiet. Of course, when you get closer to where the generator is, it is a bit louder. The industry is also doing its best to reduce noise. I can admit that old turbines did make noise. When you're next to a very old turbine, you can hear the whooshes and the sounds there. But new turbines are quieter, and producers of wind turbines are effectively working on reducing the sound that wind turbines make. I'm just putting one example here on the screen that is applied to the blades. So we are looking at solutions directly from nature. Here on the screen you see an owl wing. They've looked at how the feathers are on the wing of an owl and other birds, because they're very quiet, as you might know. And they are applying these technologies to wind turbine blades to make them less loud. Now, the legislative situation. So the impacts on health are all taken care of within environmental impact assessments. The European legislation says that it is required. Member states are supposed to do this, regional authorities, municipalities. For every project, this is necessary. Now, the rules for these are a bit different at national level. That is true, but at the end of the day, they all should lead to the same result, and that is a wind turbine that is built with taking into consideration the concerns of communities and taking into consideration the health impacts that a wind turbine might have. Now, here you see on the screen the distance rules that we have around Europe. The top one is Germany. The dark blue one means that there's difference between regions in a country. Let me have a look. The light blue one is based on tip height, so a higher turbine requires a bigger distance. The green one means that it is set in an environmental impact assessment. So every impact assessment looks at the distance limits that are there, and the yellow ones are fixed terms. So you see there is some variation, but at the end of the day, we usually reach around the same limits. No turbines are built closer than 300-400 meters to houses most of the time. Now, there's also sound limitation or noise limitations in every single member state. I've just picked one category that is applied here, and that is decibel noise. The dark blue bubble here is the night limit. The light blue bubble is the day limit. Some countries also take into consideration background noise, and some countries have rules implying that measures also need to be taken inside the home. As that example, I would like to raise Denmark here, which probably has the strictest regulation in all of Europe. I think it goes down to 20 decibel that can be measured inside the house. And even there, you are allowed to build wind farms. So it falls within that limit. Now, another health-related impact I wanted to highlight here, because I know it's also important to people, is shadow flicker. So there's also limitations set for that, either so on the left side, you see the monthly hours where shadow flicker is allowed to take place. On the right, you can see the minutes per day that is allowed to have shadow flicker. There you see the dots there. Here it's set in the environmental impact assessment according to national legislation in another way. While we are here, I would like to stress that I thought the presentations were very interesting. We have some regions in Europe where we've had wind turbines for 40 years, for 30, 40 years, and they are very densely installed, let's say. Some examples: Burgenland in Austria, Schleswig-Holstein, Niedersachsen in Germany, Castilla-León in Spain, Castilla-La Mancha in Spain. If the health impacts were really that big, there would be massive problems there to people's health. And that is not the reality that we see. Even with newer installation, that is not the reality. In fact, we see that in these regions, the support for wind energy is generally bigger. So that does not align with what I've been hearing this morning, unfortunately. Let me have a quick look. Yes, then I would like to stress that we need to flip the switch. This narrative is not always useful. We again find ourselves in probably in another energy crisis. We need to have our homegrown electricity supply. That is the reality. And how can wind help us with that? We can really decrease all of the imported energy sources from unreliable partners that we actually really don't want to work together with. Here, just an example of how much import of oil we can avoid if we build more wind farms, and we do reach that target for 2030. And I would also like to, let me just go through the animations here, to call on also people living in the countryside, people representing people living in the countryside, to see wind energy as an opportunity. There are really big benefits, and if we work together, we can also address things related to health. Things can be changed in terms of distance limits when there is a constructive cooperation between local communities, developers, local municipalities, regional municipalities. You will have more tax revenues, you will have benefit funds, you will benefit financially in the countryside more. There's also other things that you can work on together with developers, and I'm just going to show you some examples of this afterwards, in terms of how to respect nature, how to restore nature. Money will become available for these kinds of things, and it can be used, and we should take that opportunity as well. On top of that, we also have local job creation. How can you do that? I just wanted to show you very quickly what those opportunities are. There is a lot of local taxation already. In Germany, it's 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour, or locals can get a discount on their electricity bills if developers choose that option. There's some other options here on the screen. In Finland, it's very concrete. 30,000 euros per onshore wind turbine goes to the municipality. For offshore wind, I think that would go up to 100,000 euros for the municipalities. There are opportunities here. And now, Mr. Katar, I actually wanted to show an example from Luxembourg, but there's not so many wind farms in Luxembourg, of course, so I picked the closest.
They're smaller.
They're smaller. I picked an example from Rheinland-Pfalz, actually, so that it's not too far. But it's a really nice example of what can be done and the opportunities that are there. This wind farm is located in Meusdorf. I'm not going to go into the very big details, but basically it was quite a poor municipality in that region. They built a wind farm in 2014, and with the money coming in from the wind farm, they built this expansion bridge. They got 200,000 in income extra before that. The municipality now gets 1 million visitors per year who visit this bridge. There's an educational walking trail there. There's a lot more money available at local level that they can spend. Another example that I wanted to highlight, because I was trying to be a bit more geographically sensitive to reflect on who's here today, from Lithuania. A 15 turbine wind farm from 2022 to 2025 has brought in 220,000 euros for the municipal budget, again in the countryside, that funds local projects that people living in the region can choose themselves, that has given money to educational projects and further infrastructure upgrades at the local level in cooperation with that local community. And then one last point that I wanted to highlight also, because I've also heard stories about wind turbines impacting cattle, etc. Wind energy and agriculture are fully compatible. Most wind farms in Europe are located on farmland, actually. Both cattle and, sorry, I can't find the word, when we use plants to grow stuff, let's say, And in fact, 95 to 98% of the land in a wind farm continues in full agricultural use. Crop grows even right around the turbine, and livestock can graze freely across the site. It is also an opportunity for farmers to gain a new income stream. And turbines have no measurable impact on soil quality, crop yields, or livestock behavior. And I'm going to stop there. And with that, I hope that we can continue having good conversations together, find solutions together, but also see the need that we need more renewable energy for Europe's future.
Thank you very much. So, thank you very much, Mr. Williams. This was, of course, a completely different point of view, but we expected that, so you fulfilled the role that we hoped that you would perform here today, because it's very important, I think, in order to have a good discussion, to see different approaches to the issue. Now I would move on to the legal aspects, and here is where Maître Lebert comes in. So he has the very practical attitude. I think that you are dealing with such matters for more than 15 years already, if I remember correctly. So you are very practical, not only legal approach, but also a very practical one. And I would be very grateful to hear from you how your assessment is. We also, Mr. Williams briefly mentioned European law, but there are actually a lot of things still missing in European law on wind turbines, especially on the environmental directive, where the wind turbines are not really taken into account until now. So, Maître, I think that as soon as you are ready, we can then move on. Thank you. With the legal aspects.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you and your team for inviting me. The conference comes at the perfect timing. The stage is set with the Commission reviewing the noise directive, scientific work demonstrating that current acoustic standards are, let's say, inadequate or needs reviewing as well, and the unanimous political support of the Committee on Petition last September to a petition of 2021 for the review and the adoption of EU limits on wind turbine noise. Nevertheless, the conference is a success also if it sets the stage for more involvement of the European Parliament. Why more? The first reason for more involvement of the European Parliament in this issue is that, as we have seen today, existing rules are broken. The national provisions which apply or purport to apply to wind turbine noise measurement and calculation are either unworkable, defective, or even in some cases absent. And the consequence, the very practical consequence of that, is that projects are being approved without actually knowing what the acoustic consequences are. What this means in practice for victims is that they face losing their homes, they face years of legal proceedings, and a nearly insurmountable burden of proof with regard to medical and acoustic evidence. So, since at the same time the European Commission is pursuing an objective of doubling capacity by 2030, the role of the Parliament is to investigate, to do its own investigation, and to balance. If there is this objective of doubling capacity by 2030 and more after that, then the European Parliament must step in and do its own investigation. The second reason is that there is an obvious solution to this situation which has been ignored for nearly 20 years. The noise directive is a success story. When it was adopted in 2002, it had less than 20 pages, and today it has over 1,000 pages of acoustic standards covering everything from rolling stock to motor vehicles to aircrafts. And the Commission has readily concluded over 10 years ago that EU, and I quote, EU noise at source legislation remains the most cost-effective means to address noise. This is nothing new. And still not a line on wind turbines. The members have raised this issue for also 20 years, have adopted resolutions. So there needs to be a change in the method, because we are still where we are 20 years ago in this respect. And the Commission response repeated in the answer to parliamentary question a month ago is the same. Yes, there is an issue. Yes, we will assess whether something can be done and introduced in EU legislation. But in the end, it is up to the member states. And I just note in passing, the operative words of Mr. Willems is supposed to be conducted by member states, and they should do something. We don't know. This also needs investigation, and I think from a political point of view, as a lawyer, it seems to me that there is a political question to the Commission, and I think it's very positive that the Commission is so well represented today. Why has the Commission taken no action in 20 years, although the Parliament has raised this question for 20 years? It's a question, and silence can be the answer. But I think the question is there, and this is a question for the Parliament to pursue. And the third reason why this conference should kick off more involvement of the Parliament is that, yes, the Commission is acting as committed, has accepted the recommendation of the Court of Auditors to, and I quote again, assess the feasibility of introducing EU noise reduction targets and noise limits in the noise directive. But the report of the Court of Auditors is on city pollution. And if you read carefully the answer of 20th February of the Commission, of Commissioner Oswald, it says very clearly between the lines, there is no room in the current operation of revising the noise directive for wind turbines. It is said in the first paragraph of the answer. It is for the member states. They take care of that. So the Parliament has to step in to do its own investigation and to bring the Commission. I think the Parliament has the tools to do it. We see today didn't progress as much, but it can be done. The victims are there and no one is contesting that they exist. The fact that new methods and standards for measuring acoustic emissions from wind turbines is clear. It was presented at length today. Maybe it wasn't available a few years ago, but it is now in front of us, which is only the other side of the broken national standards. And so, since it is not being contested that in the current exercise, in the current commitment of revision, re-evaluation of the noise directive, there is, as of today, no space for wind turbine noise, then it is up to the Parliament to bring it to the table. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We are faced with a number of practical issues. We are actually reaching the time limit. I don't know whether somebody will come to incite us to leave the room, but I'll just put a quarter of an hour now in addition so that we can have an exchange of view. And I would like to thank all of you, also Maître Lebert, for this very, very interesting contributions that we have been hearing this morning. I would like, first of all, before giving a personal comment, I would like to ask the Commission if they would like to intervene, maybe after the comment of Maître Lebert, or if they just remain for the time being observers in this meeting. I would also like to say that Commissioner Roswell has shown her interest in coming today also, but she's in Italy, as far as I understand, so she asked us to excuse her absence. If the Commission wants to take the floor, they are at any moment welcome to do so, because I think that there are a number of issues that have been raised that are directly under their competence. I would like to make a comment also following what Maître Lebert has said, and that is that public opinion plays an important role in this. I mean, we are aware, and actually research such as Dr. Balud-Stek and Professor Madsen are doing show us that the knowledge that we have about industrial wind turbines and their possible nuisance is increasing rapidly. So we have, over the last years, we have with medical discoveries like the piezo channels and new measurement models such as those developed by Professor Madsen, we have a much deeper insight now. And so it is normal that public opinion also asks us whether the rules that govern for the moment the industrial wind turbines are still adequate. As a politician, I would say they are not. And I would also add that there is a lot of debate in public opinion about these industrial wind turbines anyway. There's clear political wish by many parties, by many politicians to install more and more of them. But at the same time, we see a growing resistance in public opinion for many reasons. And so I would argue that those who are in favor of wind energy and of large industrial wind turbines should do their best to accommodate the concerns that people have on health issues in order to save the idea that industrial wind turbines have a future in our energy mix, as you, Mr. Williams, suggested. So I think that I have a list of objections that are actually mentioned in our public debates. When we face public debates on wind energy, it is, of course, the effect on the landscape. It is that they are very much subsidized, so it's expensive, that they are inefficient and intermittent, and they have effects on aviation safety, on radars, and so many other things that come up in discussions. And so we now, in addition, we have a number of, in my view, very well documented and legitimate health concerns. So for those who are, as you, Mr. Williams, and the industry that you represent, interested in pursuing the installment of wind farms, I think that this is a subject that we should take very, very seriously. And also, of course, the European Commission that is pursuing the objectives that you mentioned in the beginning for the wind industry in Europe. I think we cannot simply stay silent on the issue, but we have to take measures in accordance with health concerns that are more and more present in the mind of people. So I would suggest that we have many, many knowledgeable and interested people around this table, that those who would like to take the floor, that they should bring forward their ideas and their interventions. I have simply, because we are already over time, just one wish. Please, I know it's very important, and please, it is a matter very close to your heart, but please try to be short so that our experts can answer. And I would say that we should take maybe 10 questions, and to please mention also to whom you address your question or your comment, and then we can take the last minutes that we have on this subject here today for a very good exchange. So is anybody interested in asking for the floor? Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Mr. Williams said gives a lot of studies who mention no consequences. What do you think about those studies he talks about? And what about the difference between the scale of the wind turbines, those studies care, and the future of the scale of wind turbines?
To whom are you addressing your questions?
To the doctor and to the physician.
Yes, so please, who would like to answer?
You can start.
The microphone here. It's working. Yes, you mentioned the Canada Health study. I really was deeply busy with that study and tried to get out for the results. What is the problem? One problem is the financial part. It was the Canadian state another problem is, more seriously, I studied the questionnaires they did to the people when the wind turbines already were there. And they asked the people, what do you hear now? What is disturbing you? And it's clear that if you have a part of an infrasound, you cannot hear the infrasound, so that the people were confronted to say, yeah, I hear the traffic, I hear perhaps an airplane, but this was the same like many studies only were busy with acoustic, audible parts. So it was not the infrasound they could get out that people are impacted. And so the third point is, in this time, this study exists from 2012, I remember. And in this time, it's a long time, 13 years, the turbines were really not so high. And you have heard that the impact with the infrasound and the increase of the sound pressure level is directly dependent on the sea's increase. So the bigger the rotors, the deeper the infrasound frequency, and the higher the sound pressure levels. So, and we didn't know at that time that the perception level is a completely other. So we have a new scientific view now, and in this severe situation, we should really do our thinkings on a new scientific level. And so I think we must really act now.
Professor Watson, would you also like to react to this?
I can mention that, first of all, many of these complaints actually started when they started to build these new turbines from 2019, when they become really big, like 4 megawatt and larger. And before, it was not so much issue because they didn't generate so much infrasound, actually. So, but with these new turbines, you have something completely different. And also, you have to be aware of that, how far is infrasound propagating with the new turbines? We talk about 10 kilometers. So if you want to compare the effect, you have to check with the population living close by, with population living far from wind turbines, compare them. And you have to involve 1,000 people in each group and check, are you noise sensitive or highly sensitive, or you have to do checks. You have to also measure the levels. What are the actual levels here? So these studies, questionnaires, these old questionnaire studies are outdated. And also, what are the effect of infrasound? It affects sleep. So you don't die from it. It affects your sleep. And how would you know it's infrasound? You're stressed at work, you have a divorce, you have stressed life, and you have a migraine. How would you know it's caused by infrasound or stress? How would you know? You have to measure it and check. That has not been done. You have to do that study. That's what I'm saying. The industry don't know. They show these old studies, not very good studies. They don't really say much. You can see whatever you want in that statistics. You need to make new studies with the new research, and look for what you need to know what you're looking for. You're not looking for how many pills you take. You have to check how. You need professionals to check how people actually blood pressure and everything, and that has not been done. And I should also say that the industry claims you have high levels of infrasound in the forest, higher than from the wind turbines. You're calling me a liar when I showed you it's 20 to 30 decibel lower when you turn them off. You're calling me a liar, or that our equipment is useless.
Thank you, Professor. I think we have one more question from this gentleman here.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Maczowski from Slovakia, and we together with Catherine wrote this book. This book explained more than 250 scientific studies about the negative effects of wind turbine. In this book is more than 1,400 website links for these negative effects. It's the problem of all the world. In USA, Canada, China, Australia, Russia, Japan, complete all Europe states. And you are not being people, you are like machine. The professor explained about the difference between the infrasound, between nature infrasound and the wind turbine infrasound, and you is the same. You are not hearing the people who have very big problem with their lives. What about this? Only the produce electric, only the money, only the economic, only the how is good, how is perfect. And what about these million people on the world? There is nothing for you. This is my question.
Perhaps, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Much. May I ask, this book, is that available also in English or not?
Now it's only in Slovak language, but from this moment I start translate from English. Maximum 1 month I give for Madeline and other people in English version all this book.
So I would translate your question to Mr. Willems. Is the industry taking into account how the knowledge about possible negative effects are being published, and how does the industry react to this? Is that the question that Mr. Willems is expected to answer? Please, Mr. Willems.
First of all, I'd like to say I didn't call you a liar. Let me start off with that. We as an industry want to take these issues very seriously, and me being here, I think, is one signal towards that. I think it's good that research is being done into these things. But at the same time, it's also, like I said, we are doing all our environmental impact assessments. We are working together with communities, and we think that is very important. There are mitigation measures put in place. They are important. And I think that's all I can say. We need to cooperate, and that's what we are trying to do. But we are also with the reality that we need to build more wind turbines, and we need to move forward with this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Willems. May I give you I come back to you later. This lady was up. Please go ahead.
I have two quick questions since my country was mentioned, and I have a question to Ken Madsen. Do you really think that the Danish legislation is protecting the health of the Danish people? In my eyes, it's only on paper. We are having 20 dB for infrasound, and then it's regulated, the audible noise, at 6 and 8 meters per second. Do you think it's okay when no post-construction measurements are done?
I would say Denmark has the worst legislation, actually, if I compare to Sweden. And you mentioned 20 dB inside. No, it's 20 dBA inside. Mm-hmm. That is nothing. We can measure over 100 dB inside. It can be over 100 dB infrasound inside. In dBA, because that focuses on the high frequency part. High frequency don't go indoors. It's left outdoors. So it's in 20 dBA. So if you use dBA, you don't take low frequency sound and infrasound into consideration at all. They claim that, oh, look, it's 10 to 160 decibel in dBA. You're not looking at it at all. And why stop at 10? Why not 1?
Thank you. I'm having then a quick question for you. Do you really think it's fair to compensate collectively for individual losses? Because local communities, they are ripped apart by this method. That's my question to you.
I mean, that's a difficult question. I think we should cooperate well with all communities, and it can be a divisive topic, and we are also aware of that. But I think in the end of the day, we need to find solutions that work for everyone. And that is difficult. No one is going to be supportive. We cannot find 100% of people supportive for single projects. And when it comes to if I don't know if you're also referring to health impact. I would like to reiterate one more time that we have regions in Europe where there really are a lot of wind turbines. We don't have a massive health crisis there. But they're also bigger there. Huh? It's true there are older ones there, but we're also repowering there. There are bigger turbines there. There is no massive health crisis. There is no massive high blood pressure or sleeplessness in some of the regions where a lot of wind turbines are built. And I think that's something that we also need to consider in this discussion. We can speak about infrasound, but we also need to consider what the actual health impacts could be. And all of these studies are showing that the health impacts aren't very big. And it is okay if we do more research into that. That is important. Health is important. People are important. Communities are important. But it needs to be based on science as well. So more research is good. And I'm happy the conversation is open for that.
I thank you, but I think that we are really making an effort with excellent specialists to build actually the discussion on science. So I suppose we agree on that. Please, madam.
Okay. My name is Katarína Ondrušová, and with my colleague Daniel Mačovský, I represent citizens of Czech and Slovak Republic. Mr. Williams, question for you. Who specifically by name and position will bear criminal responsibility and pay for the damage when a negative impact on human health is proved? Because it doesn't matter which political side someone belongs to. We will all live with the consequences of this decision. No one has given you the right to decide about people's health just because of the money behind it. Human health isn't a side effect. Human health is a line you must not cross. And we will not allow. This is our home. Thank you.
May I perhaps, madam, I think it's a very interesting question because you addressed the issue of civil liability, actually, and I think that Maitre Lebert might have a comment on this before Mr. Williams. Maitre, would you like to comment on this issue on civil liability for environmental damage?
Well, I think it speaks to the very practical situation victims, people impacted, face. And the rules of civil liability are in place, but because of the current noise standards, what we see in practice is that even, let's say, positive precedents where people eventually succeed in a decision recognizing the situation and compensating or attempting to compensate financially a damage, it cannot, I don't think in fairness it can be considered as a satisfactory situation of access to justice. So the civil liability rules are there, but if you have to first leave your home, lose value on that asset in most cases, and then spend years in court with always the risk that the court will not find that the causation has been established. And this cannot be considered as satisfactory. And it goes back to the starting point, which is that the current rules allow projects to go ahead without the actual acoustic impact being measured.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, the question was addressed to you. Would you like to add something to this?
I mean, it's a difficult question. I don't have an answer for you. I'm not here to answer those kinds of questions because I personally believe there is no health impact when it's related to infrasound. We are doing our impact assessments. We have to do them. I think they should be taken seriously. And it's like I said before, we need to cooperate with also you as communities, with citizens, and that is what is really important.
Thank you very much. There was a question over here, I think. Yes, please, sir. Microphone. Excuse me, this gentleman has the floor. Do you have also a question, sir? Okay, but I come back to you. Thank you very much.
So I apologize. Do you hear me or not?
Yes,
Yeah. have a throat cancer, so I'm in radiotherapy this afternoon. But I think it was so important to be here today, and thank you for the organization of this conference. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Willems. About 10 days ago, Ursula von der Leyen, Macron, and Chancellor Merz said that they make a huge strategic error to reduce the nuclear power production and between brackets and to have so many windmills and renewable energy. So I know in the private sector, when you're making a strategic error, or you present your dismissal, or you are fired within 24 hours. What are the consequences here of this aveu testimony that she made 10 days ago? That was a comment for Mr. Willems, and I would like to know what you think about this recent declaration from Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen.
Thank you very much. Mr. Willems, do you have a comment on this?
Yes, I do. I mean, I don't think that is what she said. She didn't say we're building too many wind turbines. We need different technologies to do our energy transition. We need different technologies to be energy independent. Nuclear can be one of them. I don't know if you're from France. Of course, France has a lot of nuclear energy, and we also see benefits of that in France. But we need multiple technologies to reshape our energy system. That is what we're moving towards, and wind energy is one of those technologies.
Thank you very much. The gentleman there, please.
Joe Kerwin is my name. I came over with Stephen from SEPA here in Ireland, and I suppose we've two cases. It's a common law country, which is slightly different to Europe, but we have two cases of where we've had to shut down wind farms, and I know those people, and they've spent 10 years fighting a case. And if that's every community that has to do that around Europe, we're on the wrong foot, and so we are. And I suppose just from Ken Matheson's point of view, I think we now have something that Lord Kelvin would say we can measure. And is the industry going to accept DPC as the industry standard for measurement?
Thank you.
I mean, I don't think I can comment on that right now. That's something.
That's the point of being here, though. It's great to have you here, but we need to get to that
Yes,
point.
but
DPC is the industry standard. That's the way I see it.
I cannot comment on that right now. I also didn't see the study before arriving here today, so I can't comment on that. All I would like to say is that we are taking scientific developments into consideration, and referring to your first point, we as an industry are really trying to get good practices on how we cooperate with communities on the ground. We are working with NGOs on this. We are working with organizations working on local governance with this. We want to establish good practices, and I think as an industry we are doing a good job at this in most countries. It doesn't mean that it applies to every single project, but we are really doing our best getting those practices on the ground, and we have active projects running in multiple countries to work on this.
I take three questions, and I apologize because I take also these three questions, and then I have to finish because you see that there's already a lot of movement here, and we have to come to an end. Unfortunately, it's very interesting, but I would say that, sir, please start, and then Madeleine and you, madam, and then I have to close the meeting. Please go ahead. I take the three questions together, and then we have an answer by the experts together, and then we conclude. Please, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Just a question, the technical question to Professor Mathson. Are the propagation mechanisms of low frequencies strictly identical to those of infrasound you described?
Just we will take the questions together. Madeleine, would you?
Well, my name is Madeleine. I'm coming from Sweden, and my name is Madeleine, coming from Sweden. I am in contact with many civil association or initiative that are affected by the wind turbine all over Europe: Spain, Portugal, Sweden, Denmark, Ireland. And I thank you for coming here today from the industry. But I would like to emphasize, first of all, we have a problem for 20 years that we have heard here today, and we still have no rules. And my experience is that people are very badly affected from the wind turbines. I have never ever heard a wind industry company collaborate with the affected people. you might be collaborating with the politicians in the local municipalities. And as you mentioned earlier, money, money, money. But you know, we can't buy health with the money. I don't know anyone who would take the money and still continue to live in that house. So I would like to ask you, we can sit down, we can meet later on, and I can also show you my studies and studies that other people have done. And because we definitely need a solution of this. We can't go on for 20 years. I can also speak about the environment investment report that you were talking about. That is in Sweden made by consultants that are invoicing the wind industry. So obviously, if it doesn't get the permission, they will not continue to work with that company. And in Sweden today, we are the only country in Europe that has the municipality veto. And last year, 25, over 93% of all the projects in Sweden were stopped by the people, by the democracy, by the municipalities. And I think that's a big warning for you to start investigation. Are we, as an industry, doing the right thing here? Maybe we should listen to these people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This lady has also asked for the floor.
So I'm very bad at asking questions. I hope I'm going to make myself clear. I think it's for everyone. So my question is very simple. When we finally realize and we find consensus that all these negative effects are important and we need to find a solution, what is the solution? Will we just destroy the wind turbines? Where will we put them? What can we do? Because personally, I live in a town of 250 people, and unfortunately we have wind turbines. We have 10. And it is extremely annoying. I personally don't know the health effects. I don't live there all my time. Unfortunately, I live in Brussels. But I have to say that I don't see anything positive about it. I only see people have had to sell their lands for money to build these horrible turbines. We live in Tuscany. It's beautiful because of these turbines. It has become ugly. I've asked the commune profits around 30 to 35,000 every year for the wind turbines. I have no idea where this money is being invested because our town is completely destroyed. We have no public services. I've been told that they're being used in public services. We have one bus that leaves in the morning to the town and it comes back in the evening. So I wonder, I see honestly nothing positive about it. So my question is, when we finally realize it, like we've seen today, there are so many issues that need to be addressed, what will we do with the wind turbines? Where will they go?
Thank you very much. So please, Professor Metzen, the first question was addressed to you.
Yeah, so can you repeat? I mean, you said the difference between low frequency sound and infrasound.
The propagation mechanisms of one and other.
Yeah, I mean, the propagation is the same.
The same.
It's the same. Okay. The only difference is that the higher the frequency, the more it's absorbed. It's damped efficiently in the atmosphere and by the ground. Infrasound is not damped at all. It propagates forever.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Maybe let me get back to you first, especially on the last point. We have seen stuff like this as well, where we know there are local benefits being given, but they somehow disappear. Now that is a problem. Transparency is needed in those situations. We have set up a coalition with NGOs and organizations working with local institutions, and we put together 5, principles in which we say, okay, this is what good community engagement is. This is what good benefits are. One of them is transparency, because we often see that benefits are being given, but someone in the municipality does with it whatever they want. You need transparency on everything from both sides. So I agree with you on that one. Then maybe I wanted to come back to the money point, because I think this is it's a void point. These turbines are generating electricity. But they are still generating electricity, okay? We all use electricity. We are all consuming it. If we don't have our renewables, wind is already generating 20% of Europe's electricity. If we don't generate that, it means we have to import more. That is also the reality. We are standing in front of a decision that we have to make. We have to do something. We have to move forward. Wind is one of the technologies that we are using for this. And like I said, these initiatives that we are trying to do, we are also trying to get them to local level. So these 5 principles that we've put together, we're now working on introducing them in Germany and in Spain, first of all. And we are hoping that they will also spread to other countries so that, like in Sweden, the municipal veto doesn't have to be used as often because you're putting these good practices in place already before it gets to that point.
Well, thank you very much. Before concluding, I would like to ask, I'm very happy that Virginie Joron could come back to us here today because she has a very, very busy morning running from one commission to the next. Virginie, would you like to add something to our conclusions today, please?
Yes, thank you. And I think I lose a lot of different testimonies, but I was on this report since the beginning. But as for my conclusion, it's first of all, it's for me the first time I saw a meeting with eye level like this, because for me it's the first thing that I saw around this table. We have everybody, association, citizens, from the European citizens. We have the lawmaker like me and politician from the political group. We have the scientists and doctor, and you have a commission, and you have from different parts of the Europe. And I think for me the best things that we can do today, and I hope to repeat that, because as I can conclude, at this moment we have no solution. That is also things, but this exchange can show at everybody how it's difficult to bring this topic in the right direction. I'm sure the Commission are aware about the problems, but how we can content everybody, from the industry, from the citizen, also from the scientists, with some new clues. It's true, we have new clues, and we have, I asked the Commission, I asked the Commission, they gave a good response. Now we have to continue, maybe with some new evolution and impact, and also maybe to have an opportunity to have this scientists for more studies, and also from my part, from the lawmaker, to try to find another solution like resolution, oral question, and to push again to have some things that we can find a good solution for everybody. But at the end, that's the point that we want for the industry, from the citizen, and for people that they are aware about this topic. That's my conclusion, and thank you again, Fernand, because it's a very good meeting and conference, because we have all different point of view, and that is for me the democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Virginie. So let me perhaps conclude. I think that we had today the occasion also because so many people have helped to organize this, Madeleine and many others, with the ideas for putting together all these people on the table. As you, Virginie, rightly mentioned, it is democracy. I wanted to thank all of you for coming, for contributing, for our excellent experts who have enlightened our view and enlarged our knowledge, and particularly also to Mr. Williams. I do not agree with what he said, but I admire his courage. It is a very difficult role that you had today. I'm always a big admirer of courageous people. You are courageous. But please take along all the messages that we have been discussing today. I think it is very important. And also, we hope that the European Commission will break its silence one day and come up with a new proposal that serves the idea of ensuring public health also in the subject of renewable energies. So to all of you who have come here today, to all who have helped to organize this conference, to Virginie who has supported this and contributes with petitions and questions and her courage that we all know. So thank you very much. I hope that we can continue this discussion at a later stage when we have additional knowledge, when we have additional initiatives that we should consider. And until there, we have probably all of us an answer to the question unheard but harmless. That was the question that we wanted to resolve today, or to have an opinion about. I have an opinion, is it unheard and harmless? I think it is more or less unheard, but probably not harmless. And therefore, we should take initiatives as politicians, as Commission, to improve the situation. Thank you very much. Have a very nice day and a good health. I think that's the most important.